Out. Okay, well, here we are already at month 6, and these are the 3 houses here that we're covering today. The first one looks to me like an apartment building because it's got 3 stories, 3 sets of windows and stuff like that. So I'll go through first the fabrics and which pieces are cut out from them. And then I do have an alternate cutting that I did use for the house fabric and the window fabric. And I'll let you choose whether you wish to do it that way or whether you want to do it like the pattern is cut. Because the pattern cuts all these little pieces together. So when you're putting together this row here, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You have 7 pieces here. So I have devised a way to do it with strip piecing, which will cut down on the number of little pieces you would have to maneuver. And I think everybody's pretty familiar with strip piecing. So what I actually did is figure out how to join these 2 pieces together, because this repeats the same size. There's 3 times in each of these, and then times 3 rows. You need to do 9 of them rather than doing all little individual pieces. If you do 1 long strip of this and 1 strip of this, then you just subcut and you've already got the 2 stitched together. So I will definitely cover that. Because I have done that, I haven't fully completed this sewing on this miniature house, so we'll get to that. So first of all, the roof piece A, the fabric is this blue with like sort of tone on tone with the little sprigs, the branches there. Okay, we only have the 1 shade of that this month in all of these 3 houses. So that's piece number A. That's the roof for house number 15. Then for the actual house itself, it is this fabric with the, well, it looks like a vine, and anyhow, there's gold and the dark blue with the navy background. I think that's pretty self-evident there. From this, you're going to be cutting pieces B, C, and D. All 3 of those are cut from that particular fabric. Now, E in this case is the sashing that goes in between house number 15 and house number 16. And it is this sort of creamy colored one with a little tiny blue dot. Now you should have probably a larger piece, I would expect, because the same sashing is used between house 16 and 17. Although these 2 pieces are at a different size. So I'll draw your attention to that. You probably only have 1 piece of this, but then you'll need to cut both of those sashing pieces from it. Okay. So that is E in this particular block number 15. And in block number 16, it's going to be F, but it's the same fabric that's used there. Then the windows, which are F, piece number F for this, is this gold print with little, it's a little tiny circle and just a little cream dot. Okay, that's the windows for this house number 15. And then the background piece, which is G, it is that creamy color and it has little X's in the fabric. Okay, so I know on the video here, it probably looks fairly white, but it is actually quite creamy. And the little X there is pretty faint, but it's just a little tone on tone. Okay, so the alternate cutting that I'm talking about is for pieces with, let me get the 2 fabrics out.
Oh, aren't they gorgeous?
Flamingo Island today. As soon as she stepped into the water.
Okay, so it is, so instead of, it's this fabric here, which is the house, okay? And it would be C, where the pattern asks you to cut 9 that are 1.5 inch by 2 inches. Okay, from the piece of fabric that you have been given, because it's only partial of the width of fabric. If you would cut 2 pieces that are 2 inches, 2 strips, okay, across the width of the fabric that you were given. So if you cut 2 that are 2 inches wide, okay, of this particular fabric. Then from the F fabric, which is the gold one that's used for the windows, you would also need to cut 2 pieces. And the windows are cut at 1.5 inches. So just cut strips 1.5 inches to correspond with the 2-inch piece of the house fabric. Okay. That makes sense so far? And then you're going to sew them together. This is a little miniature of that, but of course the blue house fabric, because it's cut a little bit wider, it's going to look a little wider. And then when you press that, press it towards the blue, towards the house. Remember, in all of the houses that we've done so far, we've been pressing everything away from the doors and from the windows, because we want them to sort of recede into the house and not stand out. Okay, so from those, then you're going to have to cut 9 pieces that are 1.5 inch. So you're going to measure down 1.5 inch and cut 1.5 inch, and you do for 9 of those. So if you actually look at the pattern, where one of those sections where it shows a C piece, an F piece, a C piece, an F piece, another C piece, and an F piece. And then there's a D piece at the bottom, which is a little bit different size. So by cutting 9 of these units, you're going to have the C and F already together. So for each one, you can sew, here's a C and F, here's a C and F, here's a C and F, and this is the D piece here at the bottom. Then you'll just make 3 columns that are going to be identical. Okay, does that make sense, or are there any questions on that? All right. It's just to simplify the piecing. You're not having to contend with as many little pieces, and you'll get the same result. I find actually it's probably more accurate. So the one thing that I ask you to sort of pay attention is when you are pressing that, make sure that your strip set remains straight. Don't press and you're pulling, and so that you end up with a curve. I see that happen sometimes, especially if you're using a steam iron and then you're manipulating the cotton fabric and it'll stay in a bit of a curve. If that happens, try to repress it. But the other thing you can do, I've allowed a little bit extra there so you can always straighten up. When you are cutting your sections at 1.5 inches, make sure you line up a line along the seam line so that you know that you're getting 90-degree corners. Okay, that's something to look out for on that. So then when you start to put the whole house together, and I pressed everything towards the dark. Now in this, it'll look pretty dense because it's smaller in there, but everything is pressed away from the gold, from the windows. So the back is going to look similar to this, but you're going to see more of the blue in between than what you're seeing in the little miniature one. Okay. And the same thing when I put the they're all B pieces. These the straight ones in here too. I've pressed everything out to that, again, to minimize the bulk as much as possible. So I mean, this B pieces in here. When you're making the bigger house, you're going to actually have fabric of the blue showing in between. It's not going to meet like this. But on this miniature one, this center piece only finishes at 1/2 inch. So that's why my 2 1/4 inch seams meet right in the middle. So, okay. Then the roof piece on here is similar to how we've done several other times, where you have your triangular piece for the roof, and then your background pieces where you have one line that you do on the diagonal that you draw there. That is your first stitching line to create. You're making a flying geese block for here. But again, as I've done in other cases, I've done a second down line a 1/2 inch away, and I've stitched that as well to make 2 bonus half square triangles. We're accumulating quite a few of these if you've been following along with that. So I just don't like to waste fabric. Although on this miniature one, I confess, I do waste this because I don't want to deal with such a little tiny half square triangle. Okay, so that technique is like we've done, numerous times before, and I think there's going to be more of that in this quilt. Okay, and then you're just assembling the house together, just like the pattern has. You've got your base here, and you have your roof piece that you add on. And I've pressed this up towards the roof. Again, I want this roof to sort of be forward that tiny amount by having this seam pressed towards the roof instead of the other way down. Okay, so that's house number 15. Is that, so how I've done the strip piecing, everyone's fine with that? Okay, if you wanted to know how I kind of figured that out, which way I'm doing it, because these are the strip pieces here, and I needed to duplicate that. And this is how I determined how wide this had to be. So this strip had to be as wide as this direction here, not the width. Okay, that's in case you come across another pattern like that, that you would know. Yes, Donna.
When you've cut 6 of them, you could add the bottom portion to it, to the 3 that are left, and then cut it.
Yes, you could. I didn't do that, but thank you. See,
You're welcome.
two are better than one. Yes, absolutely you could, because you're doing the same thing, several times. But I found it much easier to do that because rather than cutting 9 windows and then 9 of those C pieces, the D piece is just a bit bigger. And again, like we've talked about before, once you've sewn all of these together, if this strip happens to be a little bit longer than the one straight piece because of the multiple seams, just make sure that your windows all line up at least, okay? No one's going to know, it's our secret, if you've trimmed on the bottom. Because I'm admitting right now, I trimmed on the bottom. So, but it's visually how you're going to see it in the long run. And you would notice if you have a window that's higher than the rest and looks out of line. Probably less so once it's quilted. And if it was washed, you know how the fabric's going to shrink a little bit and you'll get some manipulation and it wouldn't be as noticeable. But I'm looking at it right now and I wanted my windows all to line up. So I didn't want to have to go back to my builder of my house and complain. Okay, so then we'll move on to house number 16. Got my next pile here. Okay, so house number 16 is this one there. So for the A piece, which is the roof, we have this sort of medium blue with little branches. There's just a hint of gold and a blue leaf in there as well. I guess they're meant to be flowers or like that. I'm not sure what the bright coating, but anyway, so that is the roof piece. In this case, the roof is just one big rectangle. So once you cut the roof, you're good to go with that. So that's your A piece. Then the house itself, which is the light blue with the stars, most of them are white. There is the occasional gold star within that fabric. From this, you're going to be cutting B, C, D, and E. So those 4 pieces are all cut from this star fabric. And that's here. This must be a giant house because I mean, this doorway is enormous compared to the house before it. Artistic license, I'm sure. Then for the F we talked about before, that is the sashing piece. Okay, that's this here. So that I talked about that with block 15. That's that creamy color with a little tiny, tiny blue dot. That's the F. And then the gold for the windows. It has that same little branch design that I don't sure where this is clear here with this separate light. Okay, that's for the windows, and in this house it's both G and H. So there's 2 windows and they're 2 different sizes. And then the last piece you need from that is I, which is the door. So there's a white fabric with little squares, and inside, in between the squares is a little gold dot. Okay, so that gold is being picked up here and there throughout the different fabrics. And you're only cutting that one piece from that. This house is quite simple to put together. There's not a lot of pieces, and so they go together quite well. You've got 3 pieces that are just the whole height of the house. This one just had your 2 windows and that, and then you've got this enormous door with a piece on top. So it's not a very big house compared. And again, there's no background in this particular block at all. Okay, I think that one, like I said, that's probably one of the more straightforward houses in this entire quilt top. So this is my little miniature one. Again, here, I'm going to show you the back with the pressing so that you get an idea. I have pressed away from the windows and away from the door. So everything towards the blue of the house. And again, when I joined the roof piece to the house, I've pressed up towards the roof. Okay, I happen to have both the sashings on both sides of this particular house. Okay, any questions on that? No? Great. Okay, and house number 17, which is the last house in this particular row. And in block number 6. So this one, I have chosen the stripe fabric. I also chose to do the stripes running horizontal. So you'll have, if you wish to duplicate it exactly like that, and the fabric requirement that was put into your kits was based on having the stripes running horizontal. Okay, it may also work to have them vertical if that's what you wish to do. I mean, it's your quilt, it doesn't matter. I just like to mix it up within the quilt, and that's what I did. So, so for piece number A for the roof is this very soft blue with the little square that looks like it has the 4 4-leaf clovers on each corner. Okay, I'm trying to like that. You're only cutting that one piece. Again, it's a rectangle of that one. So then for the stripe fabric, again, I made sure I cut it so that my piece is like that. So when you're cutting a long, narrow piece, for instance, such as C or B, you have to lay it so that the length is going this way. Okay, so that when you sew it together, that your stripes are running on the horizontal. So for the stripe fabric, you are cutting B, C, D, and E. Okay, all from that. E is not a problem because you're cutting a square, so it doesn't matter too much on that. I would cut the C and B, if you're going in order, I would cut those bigger pieces first, and then, you know, these smaller pieces are easier to fit in afterwards. I don't know, can you see the stripe here on it's probably hard to, I'll hold up my little miniature one here. I'll just take my house number off of it. There, I think you can see. So that's what I mean about the stripes running horizontal. Now, in my bigger one, and it was just by chance that my stripes almost lined up going across. I didn't plan it that way. This one, they're a little less so, but the pieces are smaller, and I personally wouldn't worry about that. If that is something that you would find bothers you, you might want to try to fussy cut. Or you might want to just do the stripes going up and down, you know, on a vertical. I just thought I'd point that out because some people are more particular and that might bother them. So, okay, so this is what I mean about the stripes running across. So when you're cutting a long, narrow piece, you have to lay it on the fabric so that you do get that effect. Okay. Then that is ABC. So then F is the background. So it is a white, it's a white Toscana. So it looks like it's a tone on tone. It looks sort of shaded. So that is the background and you're only cutting F. You're cutting 2 squares from that because that's what's used to construct the roof. And the windows and doors, which is the last one. So this it's a white fabric with a more densely small blue dot. I'm not sure which is the color. I think it's hard to know with the lighting and the camera where to get a good view for you. So that way you're going to cut G, H, and I. So your last 3 pieces are all cut from this fabric. And that's because you've got windows that are 2 different sizes and then the door. So I made them all the same in this particular one. Here again, the roof is another flying geese block. Really, it's done the same way as the house number 15 that we did before. So you're going to end up again with 2 bonus half square triangles. I'm really putting my thinking cap on what to do with these half square triangles because the fabrics are all from the same line. So they aren't going to all go together. Other than that, this house is pretty straightforward to construct. Just make sure with some of the pieces that are a square that you do have the stripes lining up the same way so that, you know, if one is turned, all of a sudden you're going to have one piece where the stripes are running in the opposite direction. That's the only thing that can be a little tricky about that. So just, you know, watch when you sew it. I mean, we all have seam rippers and we use them, myself included. So, you know, if that does happen, it's easy to catch, you know, fairly early, and it's not like a 40-inch seam or 60-inch seam. It's a small seam, so like that. Here again, like before, if you want to look at the pressing, I have pressed everything away from the windows and from the door fabric. So it's all pressed towards the stripe that I've used for the house. And like the other houses, I have pressed up towards the roof because I want to have this little higher piece there for the roof. And it's a bit easier too when you look at the background. You've got multiple seams that are coming up here. So this is less bulky than if you were to try to press these down against themselves. And I know the long arm quilters, or even if you're quilting this yourself, you know, you'll appreciate knowing, you know, having that there because it's not quite as thick for that. So then, of course, you can sew your 3 houses together to complete your block 6. And if you have been doing us before, like sewing block 1 and 2 together and 3 and 4, that you can then sew 5 and 6 together in a row. Okay. Any questions? No. That's great. It's a warm one out there today, so enjoy, although I don't know where everybody else is living. I know where Shar and Carla are, but it is hazy here and you can actually smell the smoke in the air.
Oh, goodness.
It
We
is
can't.
hazy here, but
It's hazy, but don't smell smoke.
Yeah, it's faint, but yeah, there is a bit. I don't know, maybe because we're closer to the lake or something like that. So anyway, at least the forest fires aren't close to us, but I'm sorry that they are even at all. So have a good day and we will see you next month. Okay, take care,
Thanks,
everybody.
Gloria.
Oh,
Yeah.
you're welcome. Oh, yeah, sorry, Donna.
I'm not sure I'm going to make next month, just so you know. I could be, or I might not be.
Okay.
So I might
will
miss the
take-
class, but you've got it taped, but just so you know.
I appreciate knowing that and I won't take it
All right.
personal.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, everybody. Take care. We'll see
All
you.
right, bye now.
Bye-bye.